No, that's okay. I'll start it. There we go. We're
Okay,
recording.
there we go. We are recording.
Okay, folks. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for signing up for tonight. I'm super excited about this topic. Both AK and I are we love our mobility focus. We
Yes.
love our we love our stretching focus. This is like great. This is really good to talk about this because it's so important for especially for endurance athletes. And I have a feeling that many of us don't do enough of it or know what to do, which is the bigger question. So tonight we have AK Whittaker. She is super excited and energetic, and I love listening to her chat. So I'm gonna let her go ahead and introduce herself, and we are off and running, guys.
Hi. So hello everyone. My name is Coach AK, and I love pretty much all things fitness. In the fitness industry, I am most well known as a running coach. I am the head coach for all of the Fleet Feet Treasure Valley running programs. And coupled with that, I have worked at the YMCA for almost 12 years. I used to be a very competitive sponsored athlete until 2 years ago when I had another baby at the age of 43. And that definitely threw my body for a loop. And now, instead of being an athlete, I have coined the hashtag MomFleet. So MOMTHLETE. And it encompasses all of these lessons that I have learned throughout, the entire last, I would say, 15 years in the fitness industry. Um, I am also certified as a level 2 Rossiter, which is a type of assisted fascial stretching. And I am a USA weightlifting level 2 coach. I'm very passionate about strength training. And I love me my non-traditional HIIT workouts. So I encompass a lot of different things in the fitness world. I teach cycle, I teach mobility classes, I teach HIIT Tabata. I do everything pretty much except coach swimming. Which I did for a quick minute, but everything I knew I learned from Michelle. Michelle taught me to swim at the age of 36. I think I learned as an adult swimmer, and I learned to be able to defy gravity with my muscular endurance. So I like to say that between me and Michelle, you've got the best of all worlds. So that's just a little bit about me. I had a pretty big encounter with a health scare in 2018, and that is really when I started researching, learning, and discovering how important mobility, stretching, and joint health was, even as an athlete in her prime, right? Like, I was on the podium almost 2 to 3 times a month for the entire year of 2018, 2019. Came in the top 3% of women at the New York Marathon. So, I was very elite in my non-pro world. And one mistake that I made in the very beginning of my athletic career was that I just wanted to do all the fun stuff, right? I wanted to carve out all the muscles. I wanted to create all the endurance. I wanted to run this marathon and complete this 70.3. But I didn't necessarily do all of the, pre-work, right? There's a saying I like to say that it's going to make a difference if we do what is called prehab instead of having to go to rehab. So I did that in the reverse order. I ended up with a nasty case of plantar fasciitis. I was swimming with Michelle. We were in the middle of a lesson, and I was talking to her about how hard my run had been and how I had to limp the whole time. And she said, "Wait, you were changing your gait for 8 miles?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, I had to get the run in. If I can't get that mileage in, I'm not going to be able to do my Ironman." And she was just like, "You need to go see a good PT and get this under wraps." And that journey led into an athletic sponsorship with this physical therapy company, and they actually sponsored me for the better side of 3 years. And I got in-clinic care and education, once to twice a week. And I feel like I got the education of a physical therapist without having to go to school.
Mhm.
It was amazing, and it taught me so much. And it literally pivoted and changed the entire perspective and foundation of my athletic career, which then led to multiple podium finishes when I started doing prehab versus rehab, right? So that's just a little bit about my journey and where I got to this passion with mobility, stretching, joint health, and just a little bit about me. So I don't know if that is my intro and I segue into the topic, and then we'll jump into the questions. Is that the
That's perfect.
format, Michelle?
That's
awesome.
perfect.
Okay. So as we are going into this, this our power is about stretching, mobility, and fascial release. If those of you that have your video screen on, if you would just raise your hand up in the air if you know what fascia is. Awesome. Okay, kind of. And as a show of hands, would you say that fascia encompasses, does it have to do with muscles? Raise your hand if you think it has to do with muscles. Good.
If it does have, okay.
If it has to do with muscles. And then raise your hand if you think that fascia has to do with the bones. A few less hands, right? Now, raise your hand if you think that fascia has to do with your organs. Or if you knew that. Ooh, that's really good. That's a really good show of hands. Awesome. So we're going into this with some education that I didn't realize you all had. So fascia is a band of thin, fibrous connective tissue. And I'm going to show you a picture of the 3 different types of fascia. Well, 4 technically. You have a more surface layer of fascia, and then you have deeper fascia right beside your muscle. And then there's 2 other kinds of fascia. And I just want to share this photo with you as I kind of talk about it. I don't know if this is gonna, there, we pull up the right photo. All right. So as you can see in this picture, you've got your dermal layer, right? You've got the skin at the top where you can kind of talk about, this is what you feel, this is where your hair grows through. And then you've got these layers of skin, which this is, skin isn't this thick. This is a very exaggerated area of skin. And then you've got the 2 types of fascia that layer right on top of that muscle. The only thing that this is not really showing is where that subcutaneous fat is. There is that layer of subcutaneous fat kind of in between the dermis and the collagen fiber, kind of interspersed. And then you have the superficial and the deep fascia. And that is what you feel when you're, maybe foam rolling and feel what's called a quote unquote trigger point. And then you've got 2 other types of fascia. One is visceral fascia. And that fascia is what is covering your organs and is predominantly in that abdominal cavity. And then the other fascia, which we don't necessarily need to talk about because I truly can't help you with, is the fascia that surrounds your colon, which we don't need to really go into that. I don't really have anything for you on that. But those are the 4 types of fascia. And I can send this diagram out via email if anyone wants to take a deeper look at that. And I can also bring it back up on screen if you have any questions. So fascia, until about 5 years ago, was predominantly just associated with muscles, maybe joints and tendons. And then just recently, the definition has expanded to include all of the tissue that surrounds your cells, your nerves, your joints, your tissues, your tendons, your organs, your bones, anywhere there's a collagen layer, like there's fascia there. So I want you guys to all kind of do this hands-on thing with me. You can use your arm, or for women, it's really good, maybe men too, to grab the top of your quad. And I can't really, here, let's see. You're gonna grab and squeeze so that you can see what's going on. If you can get a little bit of your muscle in there, that'll be even better. And as you look down, the more you bring your fingers together, the more you might see what looks like, to me, I've always thought that layer is just cellulite. I've always thought that. Like, I've always just been like, oh, like that is really like, like it's not very appealing. Like, I don't know, why do my legs look like that when I am, pretty lean? And what I've learned is that layer of fascia under some of your most dense muscles actually has pockets. It's not supposed to, but it has pockets, and it can appear almost as a cellulite. And if you've ever been to a physical therapist and they've done scraping and you feel that little tink, 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 going down as the scraping tool goes down your shin or across your foot. If anyone's ever battled the dirty PF word, plantar fasciitis, that scraping that heel really is like, and that's because that fascia isn't, it's gotten brittle, it hasn't been stretched, it is just maybe overworked, or maybe the muscles underneath that fascia are overworked and underhydrated. Like, there's so many reasons that the fascia is going to hurt. But what the point I'm trying to make is that there are different ways to stretch, right? And there was one question in that, and it's got, we've got all sorts of different stretching that I'm going to go over here in a minute. But all the different types of stretching, for the most part, will either affect your fascia or they will promote the ability to change your fascia so that it is looser, more fibrous, and more supple. So it is kind of a misnomer that you can affect your fascia by just statically stretching. Static stretching is when you're holding a stretch. Dynamic stretching is when you're moving throughout a stretch. And self-myofascial stretching is when you are applying pressure against a muscle in either a static or dynamic movement. Typically, there is some dynamic movement happening when you're doing self-myofascial release. And what I'm talking about there is not limited to a foam roller, but that is the most common myofascial release tool that I do believe every human, whether they're an athlete or not, should own. So fascia, I don't know if you know this, is made mostly of collagen. So if you have a collagen deficiency in your body, or you're doing all the right things and your fascia still feels sticky and pockety and trigger pointy, that's when you would talk to somebody about potentially supplementing with collagen, which is a very easy supplement to add into your life, right? And then there's also another way to do that, which is through joint lubrication. So your joints will help lubricate the areas around them when they are smoothly moving. So that is one reason that joint health is so important to your muscular ability to stretch and release your fascia. All right, so hold on just a second. So what might be the answer to this, right? Well, I'm sure I've all heard your coach say, you need to stretch. Great. I need to stretch, right? So what does that mean? I'm going to go like this for a couple seconds and like this for a couple seconds, maybe like this before I jump in the pool. Well, that's probably not going to cut it. Let's go over the different types of stretching. Okay. So static stretching, and this is going to naturally answer one of the questions. So when we get to the question portion, I'm not going to, I'll just remind you that we answered that one. So static stretching is when you are holding a stretch for a period of at least 30 seconds or more. You can statically hold a stretch for 10 to 15 seconds, but you are indeed not affecting change. A static stretch must be held for a minimum of 30 seconds to effect muscular change. To effect or promote fascial change, a static stretch needs to be held for 60 to 90 seconds, which seems like a very long time unless you have someone helping guide you through being able to hold a stretch for that long. Now, dynamic stretching, which is what you would normally be doing before a workout, is some type of movement driven. One of my favorites is leg swings, right? Doing leg swings before you're running, doing a dynamic knee hug, maybe some karaoke, arm circles, swings, twists. I'm sure you've all seen this on the wall, right? This is a type of mobility and dynamic stretching. We're not going to talk about how not straight up my arm's going right there. And so there's different types of stretching. Dynamic stretching is what you do, especially if your muscles are cold. So if your muscles are cold, you're warming up, you want to dynamically stretch, repeating the same movement for 60 to 90 seconds. I am sure they do. For 60 to 90 seconds. When you're doing a dynamic stretch, it helps to put movement in place. Like instead of just hamstring swinging, walking your feet with a 1, 2, 3 swing, 1, 2, 3 swing on the other side, so that it becomes a little less mundane, right? You're moving, you're going somewhere, you're going to turn around and do a different dynamic stretch on your way back. Maybe that side lunges, twist into another side lunge, or you do a side lunge with a reach down and a pull up for that thoracic dynamic warm up. If you just go like, I'm gonna swing my arms twice and then forward and then jump a couple times and then go like this on the wall and like this, it's better than nothing. I always say for the most part, something is better than nothing, right? But is it really promoting getting your body truly ready for that activity? And have you given enough time to not just work the muscles, but warm up the joints, the tendons, the ligaments, and the fascia? Because if you're warming up your muscle, that's that bottom layer, right? To start warming up the fascia, which is helping connect the muscle to the tendons, which are connecting all of the muscles, and then to the ligaments that are holding on to your joints, to be able to get all of that warm. Do you think that probably happens in 15 to 20 seconds? 60 to 90 seconds for that to happen. So that's the type of stretching that you do pre-workout. So then you do your workout, you do your swim, you jump on your bike, and you go for a run, right? And you get done with your workout, especially an endurance workout. So, or let's say you do a short workout. Let's say you've just done a short workout, you've done a swim, you're like, why do I really need to stretch? I just swam. That's right. That's all I did. Your stretches might look a little shorter, but that's where your static stretch comes in. So typically at the end of a workout, the shorter the workout and the less impact on the body, the smaller the amount of time that you need to hold the static stretch for. But the minimum on that is, do we remember? 30 seconds. 30 seconds minimum. That stretch can be held up to 90 seconds, and you can add some pieces of dynamic into that. Like I'm going to do, after I run, I'm going to do the famous, quad stretch, 20 seconds here. And then I'm going to push my knees together for 20 seconds. And then I'm going to squeeze my hips forward for 20 seconds. So I'm changing the placement or the depth of the stretch. When I do a hamstring stretch, I'm going to do the first 30 seconds with my back nice and flat so I can truly stretch the hamstrings. And then I'm going to let my back round and reach further to get a little more of that upper hamstring and low back into the stretch. So the static stretching can change within that 60 to 90 second piece, but you don't necessarily, let me admit all into the, someone keeps popping in and out of the waiting room. So I keep trying to make sure they get back in. So, but you aren't ever going to necessarily do a dynamic stretch focus at the end of a workout. So that's the difference between cold muscles and warmed up muscles and muscles that you need to recover and the length of time. Now, there's this whole other piece of stretching that is called myofascial release. And so these are the things that typically use tools like a foam roller or a percussion gun or a rolling stick or like a jade scraper. Cups. Cupping is another type of myofascial release with blood stimulation. There's all sorts of different tools. I've been known to, I will jam my hip up into a table corner if it's getting funky on me and use the table corner or the back of my chair to open up some of the fascia throughout my spinal cord. And so myofascial release is what helps break down that fascia layer that's on top of your muscle, because you could do all the dynamic and static stretching in the world. If that fascia layer is still tightened, your muscles are just going to go back to where they were. They'll be good for the workout. They'll feel good after the workout. But by the next day, they're just going to go right back. So it's really important to implement that piece as a piece of as a workout, right? We don't like to think of that, but it is really important that you're hitting whatever you're doing. Like, we would love to say that whatever activity that you're doing 50% of that amount of volume in prehab work. That's resistance band work, eccentric work for your joints, your tendons, your ligaments. Strength training that is on the higher end of repetitions, maybe comparable with core work, where you're doing resistance band or very lightweight for something like 15 to 20 reps. That will also promote joints and tendon strengthening, or tendons and ligaments being strengthened. And I will get into the strength training question as well. I have that right there at the top of my list. But if you can try to shoot for 30% of the volume that you're doing in mobility and prehab. Great question, Colleen. Eccentric is, eccentric work is, let's say you're on a stair and you're doing calf raises, right? Eccentric would be when you're lowering down very slowly. The concentric piece is when you're pushing your calves up, which is what we tend to focus on. The eccentric piece is going down very slowly. The other way that you can provide eccentric resistance training is with a resistance band, because there's work being done both ways. As you lift the band, you're concentrically engaging the bigger muscle group. As you're lowering your leg with the band on it, you're eccentrically training that closing muscle. So you're actually getting abduction and adduction with resistance in the same exercise. If you're in a big gym and you see sometimes guys will wrap those big power bands around the deadlifting station, they're not just doing it to add weight. They're doing it to train the eccentric part of the deadlift, which is the lowering down part. So they're not just slamming the weights down. They're having to lower them down with resistance provided versus just the concentric lifting of them coming up. So what does that 30% look like, right? Dynamic stretching. If you do that 5 minutes before your workouts, 5 to 7 minutes. Static stretching, that should take up about the same amount of time as your dynamic warm-up, 5 to 7 minutes at the end of a workout. Shorter and longer, variable to the length of the workout that you're doing and the impact that that workout has on your body. If you're doing the same length of a run versus a bike, you might not have the same impact happening to your joints. Hence, the bike dynamic warm-up might be a little shorter. And certain pieces of the running static stretches at the end might be a little longer. And then any resistance band training that you're doing, you can calculate into that number. And then any foam rolling, stretching, more yin yoga, like the yoga that's really focused on stretching, not necessarily strength building. My favorite type of yoga is restorative yoga, where it's like guided relax and nap time. I even put part of that mobility and holistic relaxation into, if you've ever heard of sound bath. I think that sound bath is such an amazing tool to get us to slow down, pay attention to what's going on inside, and fully tune in and relax our bodies and focus on our breathing. Any type of breath work would be considered in that. I know breathing is extremely important for swimming. Sound bath. I can talk to you a little bit more about that. It's becoming more popular in the Valley, very popular in places like Montana. But so sound bath is a guided, it's kind of like have you ever taken restorative yoga? So it's like restorative yoga, but you do lay down on a yoga blanket with a bolster so your legs are comfortable. You can do legs up the wall. Some people do it in slings. I've seen it done on floaties in a pool, like in Vegas. That would be really cool. And then it's a guided meditation for breath work and relaxation with bowls that the instructor runs their fingers around with different vibrational frequencies that help you promote relaxation, becoming centered, and focusing on your breath. Which, if Michelle, you've known me for years, is not something I ever would have done 8 years ago. But it is something that anytime I get the time and practice to do, man, I am there. It is such an incredible meditation and relaxation tool, breathwork tool. I talk a lot. It seems like sometimes I don't breathe very much.
Yes.
So all of those things can encompass that 30%. And I like to see 30% rule. So you've got to think, if you're doing a 2-hour bike ride, what is 30% of that? Then 120 minutes multiplied. I can't math like that. 120 multiplied by 0.3. Donna probably
36.
could. That's 36 minutes. Can you imagine? 36 minutes, right? If your warm-up and your cool down equal 14.
Oh
So
my God.
36 minus 14, that leaves you 22 minutes you're short for that workout. But if you then implement a 20-minute band resistance band workout or 20 minutes on your foam roller, now you're back in homeostasis with your body, right? You've now given it the recovery and the prehab that it needs to sustain that amount of endurance activity. So I feel like I've blasted you with a lot of information.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Would you say that as we get older, that time spent in prehab, rehab, mobility needs to extend? Because that's the way I feel. That's the way I
feel.
Like.
Well, but tell me this, Michelle, in your 20s, how much time of your athletics did you spend stretching?
None.
So there you go. That's why. If we can get this next generation, which I am hammering into my own children, my athletes, my juveniles, my collegiate athletes, if we can hammer this into them right now and it becomes a part of normal daily activity and athletic schedules, I mean, you don't get to train with me unless you're willing to stretch. that's just where I am in my career. Like, I don't want to train people to hurt. That's just not okay with me. There are plenty of coaches out there that will be like, hammer, hammer, hammer. And I used to be one of them. I'm not willing to make that compromise anymore. So when you, if you start it when you're younger, the answer is no, it doesn't need to increase when you get older. But if you haven't been practicing it, you may need to veer closer to that 50% mark. You and I both know somebody on this call right now whose name I won't mention, who is just a go, 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 go. And as she started strength training, she started quickly realizing, oh my gosh, I need to stretch more. And in order to get stronger, you have to make your muscles and fascia longer. If you want to strengthen, you must lengthen. There is
so true. You can't get stronger unless you have the range of motion and the flexibility,
yes,
mobility. Yes, yes,
100%. I mean, it'll serve you for a period of time. It served me for a period of time, but I quickly learned that my performance would be better if I took the time. And it's a fine balance, right? Maybe you don't have 30% and you have at 70.3 or an Olympic try coming up. Like, there's a fine, and that's where you work with your coach, and say, I know I need to be doing this. Can you help me find that balance? So one of the ways that I've been able to personally implement and find that balance is I teach a 60-minute mobility and stretching class on Sundays at 5 p.m. via Zoom. And you can either attend it live or you can have it emailed to you, and you can do it at your leisure throughout the week. I want this to be accessible to lots of people. I've been doing this I started out with 90 minutes because that's what my body needed, and people could pop in and pop out. I started that in 2020, but people didn't really have anything better to do than sit at home and stretch with me on Sundays. So it started out as a 90-minute class, and it took a year of doing 90 minutes of mobility and stretching for my body to get back to a place where 60 minutes once a week was adequate enough. And that is coupled with my warm-ups and my cool downs. I don't ever work out without doing some type of dynamic warm-up. And I don't ever work out without stretching at the end of it. And there might be that time or two every once in a while, I got to cram something in quick. And I will shorten it, but I will not get in my car off the trails when I'm done running until I've stretched. If it means the first quarter mile of what's supposed to be my run is my dynamic leg swings and knee hugs and karaoke, that's what I've got to do for the first quarter mile so that my body doesn't get into trouble later on, because I know it will. I'm not getting any younger. I had a child at the age of 43. I'm going to be 45 next month. And I'm set to run London next year. I ran Chicago last year at 15 months postpartum. I couldn't have done any of that if I hadn't prioritized my stretching and my prehab, my band work. I call it my band work because it's just easier to say it that way, but it's really my prehab. I just saw a question come through, and then I'm gonna pop into the questions here. But what I wanted to say is that if you can set aside a dedicated hour to foam roll and stretch once a week, it greatly closes the gap on what you need to be doing in the middle of the week so that you can focus on your fun, productive, I say that with quotations, workouts throughout the rest of the week by just adding a quick 5 to 7 minutes at the beginning and tail end of those. And then trying to section off like 20 minutes somewhere for resistance band and eccentric training to keep your joints strong and healthy. It says, I would prioritize the spinal before AK stretch your mobility after. If limited on time, is it better to prioritize stretch or mobility after the workout? Cherie, clarify what you mean in regard to that.
Yeah, so I'm so not good at this. I'm trying to get better of at least doing, I'm not up to the 30%, but I'm trying to start off with at least 10 minutes of prehab after each workout. but I'm
Awesome.
doing really long bike rides and really long runs. And so my body just
Mhm.
feels like it just wants to stretch. But then that means that I might omit like the actual mobility moves. So I'm just wondering, like after a workout, if
Does
I had to
do
pick
you
one or
mean
the other.
the dynamic? Is that what you're talking about? The
Well,
dynamic
like,
at the
okay, so
beginning?
Michelle has like a bunch of mobility moves loaded that it's kind of
Mhm.
like a menu. Like if you want to work on hip mobility or shoulder
Oh, so
mobility,
accessory work.
I guess. Yeah,
So
maybe that's what I
I
mean. And I'm trying to figure
that's
out what would be better to do after.
so my personal opinion is that you need to get that static stretching in after a big workout. Like that is really important to lengthen those muscles afterwards. Once those muscles are stretched, that's when you can work on the mobility, right? You can't optimize joint mobility on a shortened muscle, on a shortened, sore, tired muscle. So, Michelle, I want to give you a moment to kind of explain what she's talking about with the mobility, so that I don't talk over or misunderstand.
Yeah, sure. So I have a bunch of videos for different body parts, and some of them are more static oriented, some of them are more mobility oriented. And basically, when I program for athletes days now, so when I give them their coached workouts, I have like a 10-minute section of prehab rehab. So
Okay.
like 10 minutes in that day. I mean, you could do that before the workout, you could do that after the workout, you could split it 5 minutes in the morning, about 5 minutes before, 5 minutes after, whatever. Just get 10 minutes in of some kind of combination
Got it.
of rehab.
Okay, I can fully answer this question. So, Cherie, the answer is you need to get it in. You need to do both. If you're short on time, I would set aside, like, and Michelle, I'm sure that you'd be fine with this. Like, that's what I'm talking about. 20 minutes at least once a week of that prehab work, right? Resistance band, joint mobility, joint strengthening. If you were short on time and you could only dynamically warm up and statically stretch and cool down, but the next day you had 20 minutes that you could do your joint mobility from this day and your joint mobility from this day, that would be considered like a 20-minute workout. Would you agree with that statement, Michelle?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So the answer is, Cherie, what do you prioritize, right? Honestly, with your long workouts, sometimes you have to just start sacrificing 15 minutes of that long workout so that you can have lots so that you can have lots of long workouts in your future. Because like I said, it'll serve you for a period of time, but that time is not infinite. Like it is not going to work for you forever. Maybe you're a unicorn and it will, like that very well could be the place. I know some people that are still in their late 40s and they do minimal stretching and they're fine. It's going to catch up with you someday. I would rather it be later than sooner. Let's prolong it until we're 90. My goal is to run a marathon at the age of 87 and set a world record for an 87-year-old. So when you guys see that happen, you'll be like, oh.
I was just gonna say,
I know that
it's like cut if you don't have time, cut your workout down. Cut your workout down to make time. It is that important. It really
and cut the workout that you're the strongest at. It's usually the one you love the most, but that's where it needs to come from. If you're a super strong cyclist and you've got a 3 hour ride scheduled, maybe with a 30-minute run after, and you're like, man, I don't like doing the run, I'll just cut 15 minutes off the run. No, you cut the 15 minutes off of your cycle.
Okay,
you trim the thing you're the strongest at.
Yeah, but you're saying like it's super important to get the stretching in right after those long workouts, and then at some point then work on the mobility, like but get the stretching in right after the long workout.
Yes.
Critical. Okay.
100%. Yes, 100%. I'm going to go to the questions list so we can make sure and get to all of them because we're already at 5:44. I could talk about this for hours. So I'm going to go in. I know that one of the questions was if you have to prioritize strength or if it's mobility or weight training, which provides the most overall improvement? So the answer is both. Honestly, like the answer is both. Like they're both equally important. If you only have 30 minutes, strength train for 15 and do mobility for 15. You could also kind of couple it and say, like, I'm going to do these more prehab type of strength training movements with lighter weights and higher reps so that I'm getting both in. I'm mobilizing and strengthening my joints and strength training. All right. The next question is, I've been told to stretch to warm up. This is the cold. This is the cold question, Colleen. So we answered this. Do you feel that was fully answered? Okay. And then what should we do to maintain flexibility and range of motion in aging muscles and fascia, especially for postmenopausal women? So I think I also covered this. And Colleen, I would be happy to comp your first mobility class with me. They're only $5 anyways. It's $5 whether you attend live or you get a link that you can use for 6 days. That is what you need to be doing, learning how to open up the fascia, especially on your spine. We start every class with a very intentional 5-minute foam roll on your back. Your spine health and the fascia that's the thickest in your whole body is along your lumbar spine. And so making sure to keep, that's why it feels so good, bad when you foam roll and you hear all that popping and it's really hard to drop your head back. But that is one way. If there was nothing else you implemented, it would be foam rolling your back in a very slow, intentional manner. And then consistency of length of stretching. So instead of doing, where I said, you need to do like small, short, warm up and cool down. Postmenopausal range of motion and fascial opening needs to take place over the course of a minimum of 45 minutes with a 60-second minimum for each fascial opening or stretch. That's the technical answer. The easy answer is just join my class and you'll get it.
Okay, I'd like to.
Cool.
I was going to say, so that's what you do in your class. You meet those requirements.
Absolutely. Every single one. And some people will be like, that class sucks. It's so boring. I've heard that multiple times. And I'm like, well, if you want to get stronger, you need to do this longer. Like you got to be willing to commit to meet those goals. Yes. The entire class. And I have different shifts of focus because I'm a runner. Sometimes the workouts are a little more, when I say workout, I'm talking about a stretch. Yes, I classify them as a workout. It is a workout. And if you can get yourself in that mentality, it's going to feel like mentally easier to sit down and stretch for that long. Some of them are like leg focused. Sometimes I have a hip. I usually do one full like low back and hip class every 6 weeks. And then we're focusing on mobility. So there are times where all we're doing is we're moving and extending the knee, for 60 to 90 seconds. But when I'm telling you to do it and I'm doing it for that long, it doesn't feel like so long. At least it doesn't feel like as long to me. And I'm seeing a couple of other questions pop up here. Let me get to those before I forget them. Yes, we can send out an email with the information. Very easy. How many minutes per in the 45 minutes? Donna, can you clarify?
Yeah, you were saying in the 45 minutes you hold each stretch for, and I missed what that was.
A minimum of 60 seconds.
Oh, okay.
And sometimes, and when I say hold a stretch, I also might mean dynamically moving through a stretch. So the stretch might have a 30-second hold and then a 30-second dynamic movement in that hold. Okay. So we're stretching a muscle group or opening the fascia on a specific area for a minimum of 60 seconds. there, like something as simple as, and Michelle can talk about this, you can just tilt your toes a certain direction and get like a totally different stretch out of the same movement. So that's the kind of stuff we cover. Okay, so wondering about flexibility in my shoulders and upper back, maintaining flexibility after hiking, biking 2 to 4 hours, 5 days a week. Great question. I think that adding the 5 to 7 minutes of dynamic work at the beginning of your hike / bike, and at least if we're talking 4 hours, you probably need to be stretching for 10 to 12 minutes at the end. I mean, you're about bouncing in. Oh, hold on. That was a direct message. I won't read that out loud. No bouncing into a stretch. What I mean is like a dynamic movement. So just, and a dynamic movement can be something as simple as coming into a lunge and moving through it. So you're just moving those muscles in a stretch. It could be a walk with a knee lift, any type of dynamic. Like if you looked up dynamic stretches on YouTube, I'm sure you'd get a pretty good amount of information. But if any of you wanted to talk to me on the side about creating a dynamic warm-up specific to your activities, like that is that excites me. Like I would love to help you create something that you could do before your activities that is specific to what you do. So I hope that answered. And then having a dedicated long period of time that you're stretching is going to definitely help with your shoulders and upper back, specifically foam rolling that spine with your head back. So that is, and engaging your core and checking your posture. One of the biggest ways to improve fascial lengthening is with your posture, is making sure that you're sitting up nice and straight. I saw several of us shift a little bit. That is one way that you can actually help lengthen your fascia. Okay, next question. My neck gets really tired on long bike rides. Is there a quick stretch I can do on the bike and or a mobility exercise that would help? So my question, Cherie, is where does your neck get tired? Is it the front or the back?
Kind of like at the base of the neck, back in the back.
Like these right here, your traps?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that's another one. Like if you just sit on a foam roller, like if you're watching TV at the end of the night and you just put your neck in the foam roller while you're laying on the ground and just kind of look up and then go side to side, that's going to loosen some of those muscles. And if you're looking specifically for something before you get on the bike, a great exercise, I call it the chicken bob. You're just going to, so you keep your shoulders down, bring that chin as forward as you can, and make like 14 double chins. And so that's a great mobility exercise for your neck that will engage some things around here that stabilize. You have some things called scalenes and multifidi in the front and back respectively that help hold your head in place. And if these muscles, if they're not doing what they're supposed to, then these are going to get really tired. And it also might be a little bit of tension on your handlebars. Like if you're here and you're not, you're real tense, just bringing those shoulders back and down when you're riding and thinking a little bit about your upper back posture would probably take the pressure off of that. Okay. The next question, does using the roller overextend the small of the back? And what is a good way to use the foam roller to reduce backache, especially after yard work? So Edie, a 5-minute foam roll from the very top of your neck to the bottom of your tailbone works wonders. Can you explain what you mean about overextend? Do you mean like hyperextend, like really exacerbate the small of the back?
Yes, that's what I mean. It seems like when I go all the way down, with the foam roller, it in the small of the back, it kind of seems like too much sometimes.
Yeah, so that's a great question, Edie. And there's a couple of things I want to say to that. Foam rollers come in different sizes. And it could be that the foam roller that you have is too big of circumference for the small of your back. It also might be that your foam roller is hard density and maybe you need a medium density foam roller. They come in all different densities and sizes. And it shouldn't, so you want to open that, but you want to open it as equally as the upper back. So if you feel like that's opening too much, like you're getting too much range of motion in that spinal flexion in the lower back, what I would say is change the placement. Maybe roll it down a little bit closer to underneath your tailbone so that it's a little more like a supported bridge as opposed to in the small of your back. And then maybe try resting it behind your shoulder blades and keeping that head when you're on the foam roller, keeping that head back and down and then supported with your hands if you need it. This right here is where we see that I think it's called kyphosis. I can't remember what the technical term is, where we've got, that hunch in our upper back. Usually the lower back hurts because the upper back isn't doing what it's supposed to, which is being nice and straight. So rolling the upper part of your back will actually relieve a lot of that lower back pain.
So when you do your foam roller, is it like parallel to your spine or is it horizontal to your spine?
Great question. The answer is yes.
Okay.
Both ways are very important. Rolling perpendicular to your spine is really important for opening up the fascia and the nerves in your facet joints, which are the joints where your your vertebrae go into your spinal cord. But it's also very important to run that parallel, and I call it doing the hula dancer, nice and slow from tricep to tricep. So the answer is yes. Both are very important.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, and then the last question was how to become aware of tension in unnecessary areas, how to relax and break the habit, how to build awareness. So what I would say is that it's really important, just like I talked about the sound work, sound bath, breath work, being quiet, being able to just get quiet. And this is, kind of a newer school. Well, it's really not a newer school of thought. Like, it's been back since the days of old, but it's just kind of coming back around, is being able to be in a comfortable position. And we do a body scan about once a month in my class, where we just lay flat on the ground. And I like to put my hands on my chest or my heart, or I can have them open. And you close your eyes and you take a deep breath in. And as you breathe out, you relax and you ask your body, where are you holding tension? And then you ask your body, how can I help? And I know that seems maybe to some people like a little like ooby-jooby, but it's really important to be able to communicate clearly, because your body is so smart. It has what's called soma, means body. It has soma tuition. So it's a term that I made up, which is intuition from your body. And your body will tell you what it needs if you're willing to communicate and listen. Always. So it just takes practice, like everything else. Like, I didn't become a marathon runner in a month. It took a lot of practice to get up to that distance. And just like I practiced running, I now practice listening to my body so that I can give it what it truly needs. And being aware when you hear the tension, like sometimes you'll notice that your toes are clenched, right? Or that you're like tight in your shoulders, or that you're clenching your butt cheeks. I don't know. Whatever that area is that's tense, being able to breathe into that area and breathe out to release the tension. Did that answer kind of what you're looking for? Okay, awesome. We have 1 minute. Is there one burning question? Nancy D.
I
see Nancy
just,
D's.
yeah, I put it in the chat, but I just wondered,
Oh,
a lot of this sounds like Tai Chi is an option with its range of
absolutely.
motion and the listening to yourself, the slow
Yes.
movement. Yeah.
I agree. I 100% agree with that statement. That would be a great opportunity.
Awesome. This was great, AK. As always, I always love hearing you talk about stuff because your enthusiasm is so catchy.
Oh, thank you. I absolutely love doing this. I thank you so much. Like I know I kept like dragging my feet on this, and
Yeah, great.
this is so wonderful. Every time we've collaborated on something, I have just gotten so fulfilled. So
Yay.
thank you all for, being interested in wanting to talk about this. My email is in the chat. The easiest way for me to get you the mobility class information or any information that you want to schedule a one-on-one with me about is to shoot me an email to that address. However, if you don't, I will get a list of everyone's email addresses from Michelle that were in attendance, and I will just send a message out also that says, here's the information, here's how to contact me, and here's the information for my mobility class.
Perfect. That will be perfect. And I'm sure we'll
awesome.
Be there on Sunday.
I hope so. Well, and then the beauty of it is if you aren't able, like 5 o'clock on a Sunday is dinner time for some people. It's really sunny out. I definitely have better live attendance in the winter than I do in the summer, but you get the link for 6 days to do at your leisure throughout the week. If you're unable to attend, you just have to let me know that you want it, because I'm pretty like laid back about that. I'm like, oh, somebody sends me $5. They want the link if I don't see them on live. So I should get a little more organized about it, and I'm sure I will someday.
Awesome. That's great. Okay. That sounds like a really good option for a bunch of us. So
thank you.
Yay.
All right, you guys.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for attending. I really, really appreciate the turnout for this one, and look forward to next month. We'll have another fabulous speaker, and yeah, we'll get AK.
Awesome. Thanks for arranging this.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, I'm
Appreciate it.